Hello everyone, welcome to something a bit different than usual. While I work on the Erevorn series, I thought I'd try taking a stab at an extra credit style games you may not have tried list. Consider this episode 1 of Dark's Rex, and I plan to do many more for the sort of games I can't normally make a full video out of that deserve some attention, or I simply don't have enough time to fully cover the way I want to still give a spotlight to. Some of these are recent, some old, some good, a few bad in some respects, but they're all interesting in some way, shape, or form. With that in mind, this episode will be focused on adventure games, point and click and otherwise, and I got a doozy of a game to start with. The Last Dogma. Be warned before you even think of trying this one that it will run horribly on whatever machine you're using. On a technical level, this game is a disaster, but it's still worth soldiering through anyways. Made by a Russian electronic musician born in a radioactive city, The Last Dogma is a biting, ridiculous, and utterly grim satire about religion, world conflict, and our own cosmic smallness, told in the most over-the-top way imaginable. If you're the kind of person who enjoyed Southland Tales, digs the more offbeat Grasshopper manufacturer games, and thought the Stanley Parable could have used a bit more bite, you might just get something out of this one. There's certainly nothing else like it. Verde Station. It's difficult to talk about this one without giving things away, but this walkabout adventure is well worth your time. Verde Station takes place on a space station greenhouse where you seem to be the only member of the staff, but as you continue throughout the game, things start happening that make less and less sense. It does something insanely clever in both its design and storytelling I dare not spoil, and deserves to be experienced completely blind. Feel free to read up on it after you finish it, you'll appreciate what it does even more. Return of the Obra Dinn. This is a very recent one, but well worth bringing up anyways. While I wasn't a fan of Lucas Pope's last game, Papers, Please, Obra Dinn instantly captured my attention. Your cast is an 1807 insurance inspector who has to explore the mysterious, no longer missing ghost ship, the Obra Dinn, using a magic pocket watch to figure out what happened to everyone on board by revisiting the moments of everyone's tragic deaths. The design is brilliant, leaving clues everywhere to comb over for answers, and using little design tricks like blurring out someone's face when you have no clues to identify them in order to keep you from wild mass guessing. It's incredibly rewarding and instantly striking with the wonderful 1-bit era art style. You definitely won't forget the sad story of the Obra Dinn anytime soon. Little Red Lie. Will O'Neill's follow-up to Actual Sunlight, an autobiography about his struggles with depression and his near suicide, is about as dark and soul-crushing as you probably come to expect if you're familiar with that title. It may be a completely fictional work, but rarely has a game ever felt so genuinely real, from the subject matters to the worries of the main cast. It follows a 30-something woman living with her parents who recently lost her job, and a rich Fox-style news speaker who ruins his life through his own self-destructive stupidity. Both of those stories play out in parallel, and neither are going to leave you feeling happy about the way of things simply by how accurate they are. Just be warned, this game deals with a lot of uncomfortable subject matter, including a truly disturbing sexual assault sequence, but if you can handle it, you'll be left with a raw, sobering story few games ever consider telling. Crimson Room Decade. Remember Crimson Room, that popular Flash game that helped birth the escape genre with its insanely obtuse puzzles that encourage people to share their own discoveries and information with each other? Well, the guy behind it and its various sequels made a proper commercial version loosely based on it, and it hit the nostalgia center of my brain just right. It's a fun little puzzle box of nonsense, filled with both secrets and baffling solutions, with a great little moment of awe where the game suddenly flips around and shows that the old solutions aren't going to do the job anymore. They simply don't design them like this anymore. The Low Road. The Low Road is a bit of a messy title. The strong opening phone puzzle is never really topped, and while the story does go in a fun direction, it feels like a chapter of it is missing. That said, it was a passion project of Sky Boyce, the founder of X-Gen Games and one of the major Flash game era developers, responsible for Defend Your Castle and Stick RPG, meaning he basically helped found an entire genre. He passed away early in the game's development, and the project was finished in his memory. Real passion was put into every screen with a strong 70s style and fantastic soundtrack, even managing a surprisingly powerful personal story between the game's two leads. Just for its historical and cultural significance, it's worth a play. Masochissia. This game, whoa, where do I even start with this? John Oldblood's Masochissia is an absolute trip. A layered horror story both about why we play games with morbid subject matter and why people do bad things. It goes into some truly grotesque territory, but it all feels earned, even managing to prevent the big reveal from feeling exploited. I'm not one to comment on how it handles mental illness, so keep that in mind that it may be a problem with your experience, but I was left with my jaw on the floor after finishing it. The game only takes 2 hours to finish, so give it a shot if you want a horror story that has aims more than trying to spook you out. The New Guys, Day of the Jackass. I felt I needed to repeat that this Wajidai release is a truly baffling title in that it exists, but it's also far better than you think. It's an point-and-click wrestling comedy with character designs that look like MS Paint doodles, but it's surprisingly well animated and has a lot of funny lines that take full advantage of the trashy, commercial, and strangely sincere culture of wrestling. It may not seem like you're missing out on anything with this game being sold only on Wajidai's site and nowhere else I know of, but it really is an underappreciated gem in their library. Tormentium, Dark Sorrow. Do you like H.R. Geiger art? What about ethics philosophy? If you said yes to both, you may like Tormentium. It takes more heavily from the hidden object genre than traditional point and clicks, with mini puzzles scattered everywhere and a focus on presentation over narrative complexity or dialogue, but the thematic core of testing a player on their understanding of Kantian code right and wrong gives some depth to the moral choices usually absent from most games. Also, this game is just really pretty. Seriously, just look at it. Look at all that flesh. It's lacking puzzle meat, but it sticks its landing so well that it doesn't really matter much. Also, lots of flesh. That's always a plus. Tokyo Dark. Wrapping up the list is Tokyo Dark, a game made by Western developers living in Japan that tries to combine Western point-and-click design with Japanese visual novel trappings. The execution is a bit messy, not to mention some tone clashing at points, especially with varying art styles, but the horror story of a detective dealing with trauma as she begins to dive into a truly horrific mystery in search of answers and closure makes for a strong core, made stronger on replay. Like many visual novels, it takes more than one playthrough to see everything Tokyo Dark has to offer, and that structure is recontextualized to tell a cosmic horror story that even toys around with your position as the player of the game itself. Tokyo Dark is a very messy game, but its ambitions are more than worth exploring. That's it for now, but I do plan to do these sorts of videos every once in a while. Maybe I'll toss in some more retro recommendations down the line, but until then, give some of these a shot and you may be pleasantly surprised.